Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker has the unenviable task of wrapping up the latest Star Wars trilogy, uniting a fan base that's become increasingly divided, and concluding the decade-spanning so-called Skywalker saga. That's a lot for one film to manage. Does it pull it off? Well, yes and no. The Rise of Skywalker should have been Leia's movie. Han Solo got the spotlight in The Force Awakens, and Luke Skywalker's story dominated The Last Jedi. With The Rise of Skywalker, it was Leia's turn. Unfortunately, Carrie Fisher's tragic death in December 2016 made a big Leia showcase impossible, forcing J.J. Abrams to cobble together an arc for the princess-turned-general from old outtakes. It's not perfect. Leia's dialogue is noticeably vague, and it's obvious that Abrams is using a stand-in when Leia's face is hidden. She doesn't have any standout moments. The climax of her arc is a little vague, and much of her plotline is carried out by other people talking about her, not what she actually does. However, it works pretty well, and it's much bigger than a cameo. Leia is in multiple scenes, and she has a complete arc in the movie. Obviously, it would have been better if Carrie Fisher was still around to give Leia the send-off she deserves. Given what Abrams had to work with, though, Leia's final on-screen appearance is significantly better than we expected. The last entry in the Skywalker saga begins at a breakneck pace, and it doesn't slow down to breathe until the film's final minutes. In order to set up its endgame, The Rise of Skywalker introduces new characters, new planets, new gizmos, and new ideas so fast that it's impossible to keep track of them all. Every new plot thread introduces a dozen questions that Episode 9 simply doesn't have time to answer. While reports differ depending on who you're talking to, it seems pretty clear that Disney and Lucasfilm didn't plan this new Star Wars trilogy out from the beginning. In The Rise of Skywalker, that decision catches up with them. The first half of the movie, while full of action, is mostly set up for the second half. It would have been a lot better if some of those ideas that suddenly show up in Episode 9 had been seeded throughout the previous two movies.
I have been every voice you have ever heard inside your head.
As it is, however, one film has to do a lot of heavy lifting, and there's not quite enough room. Returning characters like R2-D2 and Rose Tico barely make an impact. New characters like Dominic Monaghan's Beaumont Kin and Naomi Ackie's Jannah hardly register at all. It all makes for a very bloated and unsatisfying viewing experience. There's a version of this movie that's much tighter, but unfortunately, it's not the one we got. You know who steals practically every single scene he's in The Rise of Skywalker? C-3PO. For one, Luke's fussy protocol droid is funnier in Episode 9 than he's ever been, but he also proves surprisingly vital to the movie's story. Even in A New Hope, C-3PO is mostly around to translate for R2-D2. This time, C-3PO's translation skills are instrumental in moving the plot forward. If you told us a few years ago that Episode 9 would have us tearing up over C-3PO, a lifelong comedic relief character, we wouldn't have believed you. And yet, here we are. Did you like The Last Jedi? If so, sorry. The Rise of Skywalker does a very good job dismantling pretty much everything that movie put down. Supreme Leader Snoke's early demise? As it turns out, he wasn't really that important. The near extinction of the Resistance? It was only temporary. When we rejoined them, they found a lot of new recruits. Rey's parents? We'll put it this way, they were definitely somebody. The Rise of Skywalker buries its predecessor in a way that feels petty, sacrificing lots of setup in unsatisfying fashion. The only thing from Episode 8 it really keeps are the porgs. Finn, Rey, Poe, and Kylo Ren are the best things about the new Star Wars trilogy. Even when the script lets them down, these actors are so charismatic that it's fun to just watch them run around, quip, bicker, and get into trouble. The Rise of Skywalker gives us a lot of that, and it's just as fun as you'd expect, even though Finn still doesn't have much of an arc. Ultimately, though, the film hinges on the relationship between Rey and Kylo. Thankfully, Ridley and Driver are more than up to the task. The chemistry that the duo shared in The Last Jedi is cranked up to 11 here, and the two actors carry the movie. Given how bonkers the plot is, that's a massive feat. Going into The Rise of Skywalker, fans had some major questions. Now that it's out, they still do. We never learn how Palpatine came back to life. He just is. Rey's true nature comes out of nowhere and isn't adequately explained, and many key plot points are glossed over completely. The movie constantly tells us that things happened, but it doesn't tell us how or why. You may recall that The Force Awakens did the same thing.
Where'd you get that?
A good question. For another time.
Granted, some of the Disney-produced spin-off materials offer a few clues, but viewers shouldn't have to do extra research to understand the basic plot of a movie, no matter how much Disney wants that to be the case. J.J. Abrams went big with The Rise of Skywalker, and if he didn't quite stick the landing, he certainly at least tried. It's a movie that's full of spectacle. The dogfights, the lightsaber duels, and the blaster battles are bigger than anything we've ever seen in a Star Wars movie before. And the Easter eggs, cameos, and nods to past Star Wars films pop up everywhere. It's hard to think of a better tribute to Star Wars, especially given the final scene, which takes us back to where everything began. The Rise of Skywalker is bold, ambitious, convoluted, messy, hopeful, overwrought, and complicated. In other words, that's Star Wars in a nutshell. This is it. Luke, Leia, Han, C-3PO, R2-D2, and Darth Vader are done. For now at least, it appears we finally know how this story ends. The same seems to be true for our new heroes too. None of the main actors involved with the sequel trilogy seem particularly keen on coming back for more, and given the Rise of Skywalker's definitive ending, it's hard to imagine that their future adventures will be quite as exciting as the one that just concluded. True, Star Wars isn't going anywhere. Disney will crank out new material set in a galaxy far, far away for decades to come. Still, it's just not going to be the same without our old and newer friends at the helm. Thanks for the memories, folks. May the Force be with you. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about Star Wars are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.